The first time I truly believed that I could only rely on myself was during my teens. I was 17 when my parents got divorced. The reason was my dad's affair. I didn't side with either of them. My parents were indifferent towards me, and when they decided to divorce, I overheard them saying terrible things. "I'm sorry, but I can't take care of that kid. I want to live freely from now on. I have a life with my new wife, too. I didn't want to be with them if that's what it took. So, I decided to live on my own." My dad agreed to pay for my high school education. For college, I decided to use scholarships. During my college years, I worked hard and was always at the top of my class. My job hunting went smoothly, and I successfully landed a job at a major company. I no longer needed anything from my mom or dad. Feeling that I could live on my own was liberating. After joining the company, I worked hard for the company's sake and soon was entrusted with important tasks. My colleagues and seniors seemed to dislike me. They were probably jealous of me efficiently doing my job and getting praise from the bosses. I always thought, if you have time to be jealous, you should be working hard instead. Looking back, I was an arrogant newbie with grandiose ideas, even though I had just joined a company. Years passed, and I was put in charge of training new employees. The new recruits were slow and had a hard time grasping things, which was frustrating every day. Then, one day, a subordinate asked me a question. I need help with this part." The document the subordinate showed me was something I had explained before. At that time, I had a lot of work piled up, and I was irritated, so I snapped at him. "You're too inefficient. You should have remembered this the first time. How many times do I have to tell you?" The timid subordinate looked like he was about to cry. I didn't consider his feelings or reflect on my way of speaking. After that, the subordinate stopped asking me for help. A few days later, the subordinate made a major mistake with a client. He had ordered a drastically wrong number of items. Apparently, he had questions about the order quantity but was too afraid to ask me. Despite our apologies, the client wouldn't forgive us. And thus, we lost the contract with that company. Some time later, I was called by the department head, John. "The personnel changes are coming up soon. You're being transferred to a branch in a remote area," he said. Hearing this, my mind went blank. That branch was known as a backwoods branch, significantly smaller than the headquarters and handling only minor projects. In essence, I was demoted. Come on, this just isn't right. Frustrated, I confronted John about it. "Is this because of the mistake my subordinate made recently?" "That wasn't my fault, it was his. He should be the one held responsible, not me." To my surprise, John said something unexpected. "Demotion? No, it's not like that. That place is my hometown, actually. The air is fresh and it's a really nice place. It might just provide what you're currently missing." Saying that, he patted my shoulder and left. News of my demotion spread quickly around the office, and everyone seemed to have a serves-you-right look on their face. I thought about quitting the company altogether, but instead, I resolved to make a success of the rural branch and show them all. About a month after being told of my demotion, I finished preparing for the move and was driving to the new town. It was pouring rain that day, with strong winds. The rain lashing against the windshield made it hard to see. As I was driving irritably, suddenly a young woman dashed out in front of my car. "Watch out!" I braked just in time, and she was safe, but stood there, stunned. I was worried, so that I stopped the car and got out. She was completely drenched, not even holding an umbrella. "Are you okay? Why are you out here without an umbrella?" When I asked, she answered with an anxious look. I dropped an important charm. I was looking for it when my umbrella got blown away. It must have been really important to her. She was on the verge of tears. "A charm. I'll help you look for it." I handed her a towel from my car and found myself offering to help. "No, it's okay. I couldn't ask you to." She looked down as she spoke. "First, you need to change out of those wet clothes before you catch a cold. There's a big clothing store just over there. Shall we buy you some dry clothes?" Yes. Somehow, I couldn't leave her alone, and I drove her to the roadside clothing store. After parking the car, I handed her an umbrella. "I'll wait here for you." "Thank you so much." After waiting in the car for about 15 minutes, she returned wearing a new shirt and jeans. We then went back to where she lost her charm and started searching. "It fell on the road, right? Are we looking in the right area?" "Yes, I think so." We searched thoroughly from one end of the crosswalk to the other, under the umbrella. Then, something glittered in a gutter across the road. "Isn't that your charm over there?" Yes, that's it." She carefully wrapped her hands around the light blue charm and seemed relieved. "I'm so glad we found it." And she repeatedly thanked me, saying, "Thank you so much. You've been a great help." By then, the rain had almost stopped. She smiled brightly and nodded in gratitude before leaving. It's been a while since someone thanked me like that. I felt somewhat bashful. Then, I got back into my car and headed to the rented apartment provided by the company. The apartment was quite spacious for one person and nicely furnished. However, there wasn't a supermarket or even a convenience store nearby. The closest supermarket was a 30-minute drive away. Moreover, that supermarket didn't have a great selection, leaving me feeling uncertain about my future here. A few days later, I headed to the office for my first day of work. The branch office was about the size of a slightly larger convenience store. "Can I even work in such a small place?" I muttered to myself unintentionally. As I opened the door and entered with a bit of nervousness, I noticed the office, with just a few desks lined up, was cozy, and unlike the sterile main office, there were potted plants around and everything was neatly organized, creating a warm atmosphere. Did I arrive too early? There didn't seem to be anyone inside yet. Maybe the female staff were changing. Just then, I heard a woman's voice from behind. "Good morning." As I quickly turned around to greet her, I was surprised to see the woman standing in front of me. "It's you." It was the same woman I had helped look for the charm that day. She also looked surprised, her eyes wide as she saw me. "Actually, I've been transferred here starting today." As I said this, she asked, "Could you be the Michael that Dad mentioned?" "Wait, Dad," I thought, but first, I introduced myself. "Yes, hi Michael. I've come from the headquarters. Nice to meet you, but I'm really surprised to meet you here." Her name, it turned out, was Emily. And she was John's daughter. John had left his family in the countryside while working at the headquarters, and though I had briefly heard he had a daughter, I never imagined she'd be working at the branch. Emily said, "Dad mentioned you. He said you are always hard working in your job." Still harboring some dissatisfaction about being demoted, I couldn't find a proper response to her words and just laughed it off. Life in the countryside turned out to be unexpectedly comfortable. No one looked at me strangely for being demoted, and all the staff were kind and helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask as many times as you need until you understand. "Michael, you're young, unlike Bob, so you won't forget things easily, right?" Right." Everyone around chuckled. It was a very homey atmosphere. While I asked questions about things I didn't understand, I quickly and efficiently handled the tasks I knew. Emily often praised me, saying, "Michael really knows his job. Everyone here is so glad you came. You've been a big help." Before, I was not good at being relied upon, but since coming here, I've started to enjoy being needed. At the same time, I was determined to become someone others could rely on. Several months later, John visited the workplace. Initially, I had resented him, but now there was not a trace of that feeling left, only gratitude. I immediately went up to greet him with a smile. Long time no see. I noticed he had the same charm on his bag that Emily always wore. The charm I had helped her find in the rain was a family matching item. That's why she had searched for it so desperately, drenched in the rain. John smiled warmly and said, "Ah, it's been a while. You look well, that's good to see." John approached me and said, "I'd like to have a word with you, just the two of us." Looking at me, he said, "Michael, you've changed in a good way. You look great. I guess it's because everyone here is so nice, and I enjoy the work. When I was first transferred, I honestly resented you, thinking, why do I have to be demoted? But you intentionally sent me here, didn't you?" John replied, "Exactly, Michael, that's right. I wanted you to learn more amongst people. Remember, you always tried to do everything on your own." To his words, I jokingly yet sincerely responded, "Thank you for demoting me." But that was truly how I felt. John laughed and said, "I told you, it's not a demotion." Furthermore, he mentioned, "Emily talks about you all the time. Thank you for teaching my daughter at work. Also, the HR department will probably ask about your future plans. If you wish, you can return to the headquarters. Just think about it for now." Months ago, I would have immediately thought about returning to the headquarters. But now, I was really uncertain. Word about whether I would return to the headquarters spread quickly in this small company. The employees there said, "It would be sad if you leave." Emily said, "Michael, are you going back to the headquarters? But maybe a competent person like you belongs there," her eyes welling up with tears. Some time later, a representative from the HR department asked me about my preferred place of work, and I said I wanted to keep working at this branch for a while. I didn't know for how long, but I had decided not to return to the headquarters until I became an employee who could lead this branch. Then, I got a message from John. "I heard you decided to stay there and work hard. Keep looking after Emily for me," he said. After that, I continued to work with a relaxed attitude at the countryside branch. Eventually, I was even entrusted with a managerial role. The staff and I would have a drink together once a month, creating a time to bond and enjoy each other's company. Recently, I've felt our bonds growing even stronger. Gradually, Emily and I also became closer. One day, on our way back from a drinking party, when it was just the two of us, she looked into my eyes and said, This is sudden, but what do you think of me? I like you, Michael. If you don't mind, would you be my boyfriend?" She confessed to me first. Already attracted to Emily, I didn't hesitate to accept her confession. And so, we officially became a couple. Since then, every day has been fulfilling, and I hope these days continue forever. I never thought such happiness would come my way. Now, I can finally look back on my past calmly. I got a job with this company with a twisted heart after being abandoned by my parents. At work, I was selfish and didn't trust anyone. But coming to this town, thanks to the kind people around me, I started to genuinely want to work hard for everyone's sake. I'm grateful to John for sending me to this town. I plan to make Emily, my colleagues, and everyone else happy from now on.